let's begin the stream talking about Gaza and Donald Trump's statement about how America is going to run Gaza. Now, I was in the car on Tuesday listening to the news live, and is this shirt like not? Okay, whatever. I was in the car, all right, on Tuesday live, listening to the radio live, and I heard Donald Trump talking about owning Gaza and how they're going to move everybody out, move all the Gazans out. And I will say it was startling, all right? I'm not going to sit here and say that I wasn't shocked by it. I was a little bit shocked by it. The silence that came after Trump said that was a little bit weird. I went online looking for people trying to give some kind of commentary on it, and there wasn't a whole lot of commentary on it, because I think that people were so shocked by it that people were running around trying to look for answers themselves. Journalists were looking for answers. People in the New York Times were looking for answers. People in the Washington Post were looking for answers. People in Israeli news publications like Haaretz were looking for answers. We were all looking for answers. And then, long and behold, articles by the next day started coming out on the New York Times and the like. And they started talking about how they started talking about the possibilities as to what Trump's motives were behind him saying that the U.S. is going to own Gaza. Now, from what I have read, we're going to get into articles, but at first I want to give you guys my summary of this, because I've done a lot of reading on this, so the information is in my mind, which allows me to give you guys my own idea about the situation, and also a summation of what the political analysts, the geopolitical analysts have been saying. So, Donald Trump comes out and he says America's going to own Gaza. Now, this is happening in what context, right? It's happening in the context of Trump wanting to get the Saudis and the Israelis to get together for normalization talks in order to solidify a security alliance against Iran. That's what Trump's goal is. At least that's what we know, or at least that's what's been said in regards to what Donald Trump wants for the Middle East. Because the United States sees Iran as a threat. Iran is an ally of Russia. Iran is a growing geopolitical powerhouse in the Near East. So America's been working a lot in weakening Iran. That's the reason why the U.S. was working to overthrow Assad, because Assad was a big ally of Iran. That's why the West, the United States, was using Israel to defeat Hezbollah. That's why the United States, even though they saw Israel doing atrocities in Gaza and blowing everything up and making the place uninhabitable, to reference Steve Witkoff, the United States still complied with what Israel was demanding. Israel said, we want those 2,000-pound bombs. Biden said, well, yeah, we'll give them to you, Israel, but, don't go into Rafah. Israel said, nah, we're going into Rafah, old man. You ain't going to tell us what to do. And Israel went into Rafah. And do you know what Biden did? His administration gave Israel those 2,000-pound bombs. Why was this? People say, well, America is the dog and Israel's wagging the tail, or however you say that sort of cliche saying. They say that America is enslaved to Israel. They say that Israel's the one calling the shots. They say Israel runs America. They say Israel rules America. We don't have a president. We don't have a leadership. You have a lot of people on Twitter or X now saying that we are also occupied by Zionists, that Americans are basically the Palestinians, or we're just like the Palestinians because we are under a Zionist-occupied government. Blah, blah, blah. Name your conspiracy theory. But the fact is that America wanted Hezbollah to be defeated because Hezbollah is a major proxy of Iran. So it's obvious that the United States wants to weaken the Iranians because the United States wants to weaken Russia. That's the whole thing. Ruski. Okay, the Ruskies are the bad guys, and so America's the good guys. This is the Chuck Norris, Texas Ranger narrative. Got it. So America wants this security pact. America wants Israel to be together with Israel, the United States wants Saudi Arabia to deepen security ties with Israel, right? That's the goal. At least that's what's been said. So Saudi Arabia has said, we're not going to do normalization talks until Israel recognizes a Palestinian state. And Israel has said, no, we're not going to do that. Israel does want normalization with Saudi Arabia because Israel wants to have a security pact against Iran. That is true. That's the reality. So Saudi Arabia says, well, we're not going to do anything unless you recognize Palestinian state. That's a Russian accent. Israel comes around and says, well, we're not going to do that. Israel says, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to go into phase 2 of the ceasefire plan until we see the complete and utter dismantling of Hamas. And Hamas has said, well, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here. So what does Trump do in this context? In this sort of very tense atmosphere where all parties are making their demands, Trump expresses and exclaims and articulates the most extreme position he can express. He says, you know what? Israel, we're taking over Gaza. It's going to be ours. It's going to be like Guam. It's going to be another U.S. territory. Now, Israel has its own interests, right? And that goes without saying. Israel wants to control Gaza. Israel has Zionistic ideological dreams of taking over Gaza and putting settlements there and synagogues and having rabbis there and making it Jewish. They have that dream. So Israel wants to run Gaza. They don't want America telling them what to do either. So Trump says, okay, Saudi Arabia. Now, this is a theory. This is all in the realm of theory and speculation and observation and my own hunches. And this is all just based on what I have read. Donald Trump tells the Saudi Arabians, okay, Saudi, you're not going to do anything until Israel recognizes a Palestinian state. You know what? There's going to be no Palestinian state. We're going to take it over. Not only that, we're going to freaking purge the whole area of Gazans. How do you like that? Oh, damn. Arabs don't like that. Saudis say, we don't like that. So Hamas says, well, we're not going anywhere. Trump says, we're going to take it over and your ass is going to be kicked out. Israel says, we want to control Gaza. America says, we're going to control it. And we're going to control Gaza. It's going to be our territory. So what does that do? It forces countries to make concessions, to acquiesce to certain demands. And that's what's happening, or to a certain extent. Because Egypt, and this was not widely reported, so to my surprise, but Reuters reported, I want to say today or yesterday, that Egypt has come out and said, we will help rebuild Gaza, but we want the Palestinians to stay there. Now, Egypt has an interest in this as well. For obvious reasons. Egypt borders with Gaza. Egypt borders with Gaza. Okay. So Trump said, we're going to flood Egypt with Gazans. Egyptians don't want that. And the reason why Egypt doesn't want Palestinians in Egypt is because they know that amongst those Palestinians are going to be Muslim Brotherhood supporters. Now, Egypt for decades has had problems with the Muslim Brotherhood. The Pan-Arabists don't like the Muslim Brotherhood. You have the Egyptian nationalists, secularists. They don't like the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood wants to establish Sharia law. And we were just a hair away from seeing Egypt becoming a complete and utter Sharia law state back in the early 2010s. Remember that? Remember Mohammed Morsi taking over Egypt? Remember that? That was crazy. There was a revolution. They overthrew Mubarak. That was with the help of the U.S. Very strange. Very strange, I will say. So what happened? Mohammed Morsi took over. He was Muslim Brotherhood. Turkey was ecstatic about it because Turkey is the big supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is basically, effectively, it's headquartered in Turkey. Damn. So Turkey loved that because now, look, our puppet is controlling Egypt, which means we can control Egypt through the puppet, through the Muslim Brotherhood. So what happened? Saudi Arabia said, hell no. UAE and Saudi Arabia, they got together and they said what? Hell no. They did a conspiracy. And they worked with Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to do a military coup to overthrow Mohammed Morsi and kick the Muslim Brotherhood out. Because Saudi Arabia knows that if the Muslim Brotherhood starts getting empowered in the Middle East, that the Muslim Brotherhood will feel empowered to conduct a revolution in Saudi Arabia and also in the UAE. And the Saudis don't want that. It's kind of like the French Revolution. You know, after the French Revolution, all these big, powerful European countries started to declare war on France. Why? Why did Spain say, no, we're going to declare war on France? Why did Austria-Hungary, why did the British get really worried about the French Revolution? Because they knew that if we start tolerating the idea of head chopping your king, that we're next. And it's like that scene of Braveheart when Longshanks comes along and he sees the head of his nephew that was lobbed off by Mr. William Wallace. And what does Longshanks say? He says, if I don't deal with William Wallace, then it's going to be my ass, my head in a basket. And that was that very feeling in 18th century Europe. That's why all these big Western countries declared war on France, because they did not want to allow the idea of a revolutionary government to spread and resound in Europe. So it's the same reason why Saudi Arabia overthrew Mohammed Morsi. Saudi Arabia, UAE, they facilitated a revolution to overthrow Mohammed Morsi because they don't want Muslim Brotherhood. So that is the reason why they don't want Gazans into Egypt, because they know, like, okay, most of those Gazans will be normal people, but the problem is you're going to have too many who are going to be Muslim Brotherhood. And those Muslim Brotherhood Gazans, Hamas Gazans, they're going to what? They're going to collaborate, or at least they could collaborate with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and they could stir up problems and cause potential instability in Egypt. Egypt doesn't want that at all. So Trump says what? He makes a really extreme statement. So he makes this extreme statement. He says, not only are we going to take over Gaza, we're going to kick all the Gazans out. And we're going to put them in Egypt, and we're going to put them in Jordan. And Egypt says, no. And what does Egypt say? What did Egypt say recently? Egypt said, we can help rebuild Gaza, but just keep the Palestinians there. Okay, that might actually work. Who knows? We have yet to see what's going to happen. So my guess, okay, this is all guessing, what possibly could be happening. What possibly could be happening is Donald Trump saying, I'm going to make the most extreme, or Donald Trump thinking, I'm going to make the most extreme proposal. Going to get everyone all riled up. I'm going to get everyone freaked out. And then they're going to start bringing my extreme position down a few notches. And then they will come up with a compromise. They will come up with a deal that will sound reasonable. And I think this could be Trump's strategy. And this is the observation that a lot of different analysts have made, that Donald Trump is basically making an extreme position to shock everybody into hammering out a compromise. This is the strategy according to some political observers. And the other thing that I want to add to this is that a similar situation happened during Trump's first term. So during Trump's first term, Israel said that they were going to annex about 30% of the West Bank. And Israel said, yeah, we're going to annex this much of the West Bank because that area that we want to annex is pretty much inhabited by Jewish settlers anyway, so let's just take it over. And this caused a big ripple effect. It echoed throughout the Western world that Israel wanted to annex this big chunk of the West Bank. Tons of people were against it. The Europeans were completely against it. And there were people in Trump's administration who were saying, oh, this is a great idea. Yeah, Israel, yeah, they're going to annex the West Bank. This is amazing. This is a great idea. And then what did that do? What it did was it got the Arabs to say, okay, listen, we can not talk about a Palestinian state, but just don't annex that big chunk of the West Bank. And that forced, or that shocked Saudi Arabia into making that concession. So perhaps, I could be wrong, but perhaps that's what's occurring here. Or perhaps we are seeing the beginning stages of the worst case scenario, and that is mass deportations of Palestinians. And that would be pretty disturbing. So here's an article that was published by Haaretz recently, and it says here, despite equal bargaining power, Trump's chaos is proving more effective than Biden's diplomacy. Again, this goes back to the question of what was Trump's motive behind saying that the U.S. is going to own Gaza, blah, blah, blah. So it says here, from the moment he made his proposal, Donald Trump, radical, hard to implement, and likely unacceptable to the Arab world, he has hoped to force the Palestinians and Arab countries to go out of their way to make an offer he finds acceptable. So let's read that again. This is really interesting. Trump, has hoped to force the Palestinians and Arab countries to go out of their way to make an offer he finds acceptable. So this writer, Mr. Amos Harel, this is his analysis. This is his observation. He's saying, look, Donald Trump did make a very extreme statement, but his purpose, his reasoning behind making such an extreme statement was to push the Arab countries and the Palestinians to go out of their way, and these are his words, to make an offer that he finds acceptable. In other words, I'm going to make the most extreme position so that when you guys are all shocked and riled up, you guys are going to do what? You're going to bring my position down a few notches and say, okay, you want to aim for the freaking moon? Or you want to aim for the planet Mars? We'll give you the moon. Oh, okay, you got the moon. So it's like saying, hey, I'm going to go fly up to Mars. Well, you can't do that. It's dangerous. I'm going to do it. No. You can go to the moon. Okay, that's acceptable. So that's what it's like. It's like that saying, try to reach for the heavens, but at least you'll reach the stars or something like that. I think it's possible that that's what Trump is doing, right? And I hope that this is the case, that we're not looking at the beginning stages of a whole policy of ethnic cleansing. That's what I don't want to see. But it looks like Trump's strategy is make the most extreme position, force all the other parties to bring my position down a few notches, and then I'll say, oh, that's acceptable. And then I'll accept it. In practice, the discussion could very well return to the original ideas debated in the Biden era: reconstruction while most residents remain in Gaza, significant financing by the Gulf states, and settling on a political solution that lets Trump and Netanyahu say that Hamas was no longer at the wheel in the Strip. And I think that this is a practical observation. Again, I think this is the reason why Egypt came out and said, hey, we will rebuild Gaza, but just don't deport Palestinians. Don't give the Palestinians to us. We don't want them. So it says here that It says here that Defense Minister Israel Katz on Wednesday ordered the military to prepare a plan for evacuating Gazans. Katz also preemptively blamed countries like Spain, Ireland, and Norway, those three countries are in his crosshairs because those are the countries that recently recognized a Palestinian state. That's the reason why. Spain, Ireland, and Norway last year, they came out and they said, the Spanish said, we recognize a Palestinian state, damn it. And the Irish said, we also recognize a Palestinian state. We recognize it. Yes, we do, as Ireland. This is Ireland. And the Norwegians said, yeah, we recognize a Palestinian state. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And that pissed off the Israelis because these are three Western countries. Now, if Kenya came out and said, we recognize a Palestinian state, we do not respect the dehumanization of Palestinians that the Israelis are conducting on those people, we are against all forms of imperialism, Western European imperialism, because we were once under imperialism. So, if Kenya did that, nobody would give a shit. That's the sad reality, right? If Kenya does something, nobody cares. But three Western countries came out and said, we recognize a Palestinian state. That really pissed off the Israelis. So, it says here that this Israeli guy, Mr. Israel Katz, he got pissed off at Spain, Ireland, Norway which have criticized Israel's conduct during the war of hypocrisy if they wouldn't accept Palestinian refugees. Which is a very typical argument. It's not for nothing that Steve Witkoff, which is who is Donald Trump's Mideast envoy, it's not for nothing that Witkoff was sent to meet for hours with Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. The Americans want to stabilize Netanyahu's coalition ahead of the coming moves. So this is a really good observation. A really good observation. So Smotrich is one of the fanatic members of the Israeli Knesset. He is a part of Netanyahu's coalition. Netanyahu wants to maintain his coalition in the Israeli Knesset. The reason for this is because Netanyahu is holding onto his power by a hair. If his coalition breaks down enough, he will lose power in the Knesset, and then Israel will have to go through another election. So Netanyahu doesn't want to lose his power. And they say, well, it's because he knows that if he loses his power, then he's going to be tried for corruption, or he could be put in jail, etc. Who knows if that's going to happen? But Natan wants to maintain his power. So Smotrich and Ben Gvir, they have come out and they've said, hey, if you stop this war for good, or if you agree to do or if you agree to maintain a permanent peace with Gaza, we're done. We are done. And Ben Gvir already left. So Ben Gvir left the coalition. So that weakened Netanyahu. But Netanyahu still maintains his majority in the Knesset. The problem is if Smotrich leaves, then Netanyahu will lose his coalition. His coalition will break down completely, or will have breakdown completely because of that. So Mr. Witkoff, Trump's Mideast envoy, met with Smotrich and spent several hours with Smotrich. Why? Because he wants to stroke Smotrich's ego, please him, tell him things that he wants to hear, and convince him to stay with Netanyahu's coalition, to maintain Netanyahu's power. So the Americans, as this author has observed, the Americans want to stabilize Netanyahu's coalition ahead of the coming moves. It says here that the fantasy of expulsion is too tempting for Smotrich to abandon now. So here's another thing that Trump did. Trump gave a lifeline to Netanyahu's coalition. Like I said already, Netanyahu has these hardliners in his government. He wants to keep those hardliners in his coalition because they help maintain his power, and so he doesn't want to lose them. So by Trump saying, we're going to push all the Palestinians out, that gave the opportunity for Netanyahu to come out and say, don't worry, Smotrich, don't worry, we're not really going to perpetuate this peace with Gaza, because Trump just said we're going to push all the Palestinians out. Trump's on your side, because Smotrich wants to get rid of all the Palestinians and make the Palestinian territories into fully Jewish states. That's what Smotrich wants to do. That's what Ben Gvir wants to do. These people are they're just Jewish Nazis. They want to create Jewish Lebensraum, which is a Nazi term that means living space, and it was a term used by the Nazis to signify this ideological desire to expand German territory into Eastern Europe in the name of purging out the Slavs and replacing the Slavs with Germans in order to give them living space. And that's where the word Lebensraum comes, or that's where it's used, or that's why it was used. It was used to apply, or it was used to define such an evil and sinister policy. The Germans definitely did kill millions of people, and they did replace those people with Germans, and that the whole idea was Lebensraum. So that's the thing. Smotrich wants to do this, and the scary thing is that his perspective, his ideology, is growing. It's growing by leaps and bounds in Israel, and this idea of removing all the Palestinians is very, very popular in Israel. That's why I say there's going to be a genocide of the Palestinians. Is it going to happen under Trump's watch? Is it going to happen under his successor's watch? Is it going to happen under that guy's successor's watch? I don't know. I don't. But what I do know, and you can do the research on this and you will see that I'm correct. What I do know is that hardline ideology in Israel is growing by leaps and bounds. It is growing demographically because you have these nationalists and ultra-religious people who are having very, very high birth rates, but it is also spreading. It is being percolated in the country. So it is a very, very scary reality, and that's why I say it is inevitable. And this is what Israel's most prominent historian had to say. It is inevitable that a genocide will happen on the Palestinians. And when that happens, I believe that the world will just say, we have washed our hands of you, Israel. And that is going to give the pretext to Israel's biggest enemies to do Shoah Part 2, the next Holocaust of the Jewish people. It's going to be very ugly. So Smotrich, he says, we got to get rid of all the Palestinians. Now, is this something that people in America want, right? Of course, there are Americans who do want that, but there are a lot of Americans in Washington who don't want that. And so what Trump did, and this is what a lot of people in Haaretz are saying, what Trump did was it gave Netanyahu the opportunity to tell Smotrich that Trump is on his side and that Trump wants to remove the Palestinians just like you want to remove the Palestinians, Mr. Smotrich. So be by my side and stay by my side. And this has given Netanyahu time to prolong his coalition and in turn to prolong his power. The question is how long can this facade be maintained if this indeed is a facade, right? If this is indeed a facade. And if it is a facade, how long can he maintain it? But not only that, how long will it take before the hardliners start to say, okay, we want to see actual results? Where are the results? So it's all very ugly no matter how you look at it. No matter how you look at it, the end result is going to be people desiring a bloodbath. And it's very, very bleak. We can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way, the Trumpinator. SMY says Trump caved in like a little pup. Well, you could be right. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're wrong, but I'm going to say you could be right. We have yet to see, okay? Trump's term is supposed to last 4 years, and something might happen to end his term. Who knows? But his term is supposed to last for 4 years. 4 years, a lot of things can happen in 4 years. So we have yet to see what's going to happen.